Hey, Rush Nerds! Welcome to another exciting episode of Clockwork Reviews. This is Terrence, the Rock Sponge, also the host of Pink Floyd Central on another YouTube channel, and TJR's favorite rock albums, and the Terrence and Mark Experience podcast, amongst other things. And all thanks to all people. And we're now in the third episode of Clockwork Reviews, my Rush show, and we're going to review two Rush albums that came out the year I was born, 1976. Instead of doing just one album per episode, some are just going to be, because they were released in the same calendar year, just as in the case of this album, we're doing two. And of course, the two albums that came out the year I was born were 2112 and, as Shakespeare once said, All the World's a Stage.
We are the beats of the tables of series.
2112, Rush's fourth studio album, was released in March of 1976. This album was almost Rush's final album because their first three albums didn't really set the world on fire, despite the fact, they were opening for the likes of Kiss, Blue Oyster Cult, Aerosmith, and a few other bands. But, the promise of their first album kind of wore off with the release of Fly By Night, although those two albums were perfect. And Caress of Steel, their third album, which is one of my all-time favorite albums, did even worse than the first two. So they were almost on the verge of being extinct. Now, before I talk about the making of 2112, let's hear from the band members themselves the horrible situation they were facing as they were about to record what could have been their final at-bat in rock history had this album tanked. Geddy Lee, Alex Lifeson, Neil Peart, off you go, boys.
At that time, Ted Nugent was also not breaking. So the two of us played a lot of small clubs together. It was a pretty depressing tour. We were kind of lost, figured that we would probably not survive to see another tour. And the record company was really not happy with us, and our management was trying to defend us.
That was a terrible winter. I had no money. I was sleeping on a friend's couch. Things couldn't have been bleaker, really. The record company, everybody was, we're going to have to be more commercial here and think about some singles and just leaning on us at our weakest.
We talked about how we would rather go down fighting than try to make the kind of record they wanted us to make. We made 2112 figuring everyone would hate it, but we were going to go out in a blaze of glory.
We all decided that we would rather go back to our jobs, working on a farm or working as a plumber's mate for my dad or whatever, than give in and just be something that everybody else wants us to be.
We did summon that strength of character to say, no, we won't do that. We're doing it our way, and if this is the last hurrah, fine. Back to the farm equipment dealership for me. It was a big no. No, we're not doing any of that. No, you can't tell us what to do, and no, we don't care. The nature of the story itself that evolved in 2112, of course, was the individual against the mass. And that album did communicate and reach people on a level that just blossomed outward by the classic form of word of mouth. Obviously, the opening 20-minute piece did not get played on the radio.
Rush went to Toronto Sound Studios with long-suffering co-producer Terry Brown, who was also the engineer on this album, to record what might have been and was almost Rush's final at-bat. Because you see, if they went down swinging, didn't hit a home run, Rush would have been extinct. Luckily, they did hit the home run with 2112's success, and I will discuss that when we get to it. And like Caress of Steel, the band decided to do another album with a sidelong piece, and their record company, Mercury, thought the band was nuts. But I found out, like many others did, many before I did, because I was just a baby when this album was released. I was about that big, crying, "Mama, ah!" and "Dada, wah!" Crying like a baby, wanting his baby bottle him to sleep. You know, it wasn't until I was 14 years old in 1990 that I first acquired this album on cassette tape. Thanks to my dad buying it for yours truly at Kmart. Yes, of all places, he bought me the cassette at Kmart in the $5 bin. Oh my god, all I can think of is the movie Rain Man with Kmart. I know, Kmart. Fuck Kmart. Just kidding. If it wasn't for Kmart, I wouldn't have my first copy of 2112, which was on cassette. This particular CD issue I have right here is the miniature LP sleeve that came in the box set Sector 1, which is packaged just like the original record. So having two versions of this album, this is one CD copy and this is the other, which is the re-release that came out in December of 2012 that I got for Christmas 2012. I actually got to open it Christmas Eve. One gift opened at Christmas Eve. I opened this puppy because it was the one that jumped out at me. Anyways, the sideline piece on 2112, I will tell you about it right this moment, told the story of and basically the lyrics ode to famed philosopher Ayn Rand, and basically about a future where music is banned and it's run by these Red Star of the Solar Federation, and it's basically run by these priests who basically outlaw everything. They control the media, just like the powers that be are today. You know, the powers that be, you know, I cannot mention who they are, but you all know what I mean, who control the media, control the press, control the radio, control Hollywood, etc., etc., etc. They control what you read, what you see, what you hear, you know, whatever you read, etc., etc. And the star with the man emblem is basically the character of the 2112 story versus the evil Red Star of the Solar Federation. And the title Suite to 2112 begins this masterpiece. And it begins with an overture with some synthesizer effects played by album cover designer Hugh Syme, who is still Rush's album cover designer today in 2014. So it begins with his synthesizers, which were ARP, whatever you want to call that company, Odyssey synthesizer collages, which then segued into the overture properly with the band just rocking away like no tomorrow. And then after the "and the meek shall inherit the earth," it goes right into the Temples of Syrinx, which introduce our villains, those evil bastards, the priests of the Temples of Syrinx, whose voices are in high-pitched yelps, and Geddy Lee's vocals, of course, were processed through, phase flanging delay modulator to give it that warbled sound, and singing his ass off in that high-pitched thing. I mean, I can't get my voice that high, but his vocals on that section, that's, a lot of people are like, is that a girl? I don't know. It's a dude who's singing the high-pitched part. It's a guy, and they're like, holy shit, that guy can sing high. And he can play the bass guitar like a motherfucker. And Alex Lifeson's guitars just kick ass, and Neil Peart just kicking ass on the drums. And then the Temples of Syrinx introduce our villains, who are the ones controlling the show. And then we get to part 3 of this 7-part suite, which is Discovery, which sees our hero find in his cave, hidden behind a waterfall, an old ancient relic called a guitar, and he tuned it, and he was playing it, and he's like, sheesh, I can make my own music with this thing. This would be great, And then Presentation is our hero bringing the guitar to those evil bastards, the priests of the temples of Syrinx, saying, hey, this is great. This guitar can just bring us beautiful music. So Getty was singing, alternating between the hero, which is in Getty's normal singing voice without processing and effects and all that, and then the priests come in with the high pitch, yes, we know, it's nothing new. And then Getty alternating between those evil bastards and our hero. I can't believe you're saying these things just can't be true. Our world could use this beauty. Just think what we might do. Listen to my music and hear what it can do. There's something here. It's as strong as life. I know that it will reach you. And then the priests reject it. Another toy to help destroy the elder race of man. Takes the dude's guitar, puts it underneath their feet, and shatter it. What no good sons of bitches they are. And then part 5, our hero, dejected by what those bastards at the temples of Syrinx did to his beloved guitar he found, goes back to his cave, goes to sleep, and has a dream. In the section called Oracle the Dream, which until 1996, they never performed it live. It wasn't until the Test for Echo tour, which I got to see in June of 97, and was documented on this live album here, different stages, that they performed the whole suite in its entirety, and the performance I was at was officially recorded on this live album, which is sadly physically out of print anyway. You can't buy the CD anymore, but you can get it as a download, but it doesn't sound the same. But Oracle the Dream sees our hero dream about the elder race still alive and kicking, still working hard, plotting for their time to return back, to bring back the old methods and come back and overthrow those no-good bastard priests of the temples of Syrinx. And then Soliloquy sees our hero waking up from his slumber and still dejected about living the cold life. And sadly, the lyrics of the final lyrics of the piece, beautiful piece, Alex's guitar work on it, Getty's bass playing and singing, and Neil's drumming on this piece, just perfect. And it ends, and the soliloquy sadly ends, after a brilliant guitar solo from Alex, with our hero taking his life. I don't condone suicide, but sadly, our hero had no choice. And then part 7 was the grand finale, which saw the Solar Federation and the Elder Race having one final big war going on. And at the end, and the battle goes on, and you're like, holy shit, who's going to win this thing? And then for years, I thought the priests won the war. But then Neil Peart on classic albums, on the making of both 2112 and Moving Pictures, finally cleared what the meaning of 2112 meant. And it was that the good guys, the Elder Race, the cavalry, came in, kicked those priests of the temples of Syrinx's sorry asses, killed them off, and the Elder Race returned and lived happily ever after. When I finally heard that, I was like, and I listen to it now with the ending better explained, I'm like, shit, it does have a happy ending. Attention all planets of the Solar Federation. Attention all planets of the Solar Federation. Attention all planets of the Solar Federation. We have assumed control. We have assumed control. We have assumed control. That meant the Elder Race kicked the ass of those evil priests of the temples of Syrinx. So the priests went straight to hell, and the Elder Race came back and reclaimed their throne. Sadly, our hero never got to see it, because he took his life, sadly. But on the DVD, it's a whole different sort of story with the visual presentation that comes with the DVD on this, for those of you who have this. Anyway, I digress. Once you were cleared with the epic known as 2112 that took up the entire first side, you flipped the bugger over to side 2 and there were 5 shorter songs. First is the Ode to Marijuanica, A Passage to Bangkok, although I don't smoke pot myself because I'm allergic to it. The song, just a classic. Rush obviously hold the song in high regard because they played the song live, not on the 2112 tour itself, but they played on the I know they played it on the Hemispheres tour in 78, 79, and again on the Permanent Waves tour of 1980, which was documented on the live album Exit Stage Left, and of course they resurrected it on the Snakes and Arrows tour, which is on the Snakes and Arrows live CD and DVD and Blu-ray. But A Passage to Bangkok, just a killer, great song, great rocker, just an excellent song, and what else can I say about it but a killer track. Next is the band's ode to the TV show they grew up and loved, The Twilight Zone, which was a tribute to the late Rod Serling's classic TV show. Of course, Rod Serling, the creator of The Twilight Zone, had passed away just the year before 2112 came out. He passed away in June of 75, and they dedicated their Caress of Steel album to his memory. So they decided to write a song based on that show. Rather than cram 50 zillion stories into one song, they took 2 stories and put it into an excellent near 4-minute track, which saw one guy go into a diner to meet a man who was pleased to meet the guy, and then the guy working the diner took his hat off and he had 3 eyes. And if you have the classic album's DVD on the making of this album, you all know the story about Twilight Zone. For those of you who didn't, I urge you to watch it, if it's on YouTube. If not, buy the DVD or Blu-ray, because you're missing out on one hell of a great documentary on this great puppy of an album. Next, after The Twilight Zone, was Alex Lifeson's Lessons. This melodic up-tempo rocker was written solely by Alex Lifeson, and it was actually the last time Alex would write lyrics on a Rush song. In fact, I think it was the only time Alex wrote lyrics to a Rush tune. And he didn't do a bad job either, but music is more of his strongest suit, and just an excellent song. And what else can I say but a great song? The next is the ballad Tears, which was written and sung by Geddy Lee. So he got a song that he wrote by his lonesome on this album, and just an excellent song, and featured album cover wizard Hugh Syme on keyboards once again, this time using the old Mellotron, that famed keyboard that King Crimson and King Crimson and the Moody Blues popularized, even Genesis popularized back in the day. Tears, just a beautiful song. And then the last song is the rare Geddy Lee and Neil Peart collaboration, Something for Nothing, which basically says you have to fight, you have to fight to get what you want in life. You have to go for it, you have to do it, you have to motivate yourself to go reach for what you want in life, because you don't get things handed to you on a silver platter. And in fact, the idea for the song came to Neil Peart on his way to a performance with Rush. He saw a graffiti going through California saying, "Freedom isn't free." So he saw that "Freedom isn't free" graffiti, and he's like, I gotta write me some lyrics to that. So he wrote the lyrics down, and then Geddy just came up with the music one day, and there we were. And in fact, the 2112 suite was mainly music, Geddy Lee and Alex Lifeson, lyrics, Neil Peart, except for Discovery and Presentations music was Alex Lifeson, because he wrote the music to both of those by his lonesome. And anyway, Something for Nothing, just an excellent song. And what else can I say about Something for Nothing but kick ass and a great way to close an epic album. 2112, when it was first released, peaked at number 61 on the Billboard album chart, which at that stage was the highest charting Rush album up to that point in time, because not many of their albums charted that high in those days. And it slowly but surely sold well, and it eventually went gold in November of '77 alongside their then current album, Farewell to Kings, and the live album that came from this tour, which I'm about to talk about, All the World's a Stage, in just a moment. And 2112 eventually would go platinum alongside All the World's a Stage around the time Moving Pictures went platinum. So 2112 was the first Rush album to really set the world on fire. And from that point forward, it was nothing but upward and more success for Rush, and they had to continue fighting for it every step of the way. But 2112 doesn't sound like a 1976 recording. In fact, it's held up very, very well. And in fact, the album was re-released in December of 2012 in 5.1 surround sound with a new remaster of the CD with 3 bonus live tracks, being a 1980 live version of Overture and Temples of Syrinx, recorded, actually it was recorded in '81 on the Moving Pictures tour, and then also a live version of Passage to Bangkok, different than the take that was on Exit Stage Left. As I read from the booklet of this, the live version of, just bear with me here, the live version of Passage to Bangkok on this reissue was recorded, wait for it, it was recorded sometime in 1980 on the Permanent Waves tour. And an excellent version it was, I might add. As I look at this thing, yes, somewhere in the booklet. And of course the album was remixed in surround sound on the DVD, which has a digital comic book with lyrics. And what can I say but an excellent reissue. The surround sound mix is excellent. Hearing it in surround sound is superb, as well as the surround sound mix in the downfold of stereo sounds just as great as hearing it in actual surround sound, because I've played it in both configurations. And either way, 2112 still is an album I can go back to, and I am not bored with. It doesn't sound out of date, doesn't sound like a 36-year-old record, still just kicks ass 30 some odd years after it was first recorded. A lot of people might think I'm nuts for saying that. Oh, Overture and Temples Live on this reissue were recorded in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, whereas some of Exit Stage Left was recorded in Edmonton, Alberta, much to what is suggested otherwise. And A Passage to Bangkok was recorded at the Manchester Apollo in Manchester, England on the Permanent Waves tour. It's a good thing I did read the booklet of this to explain about the live tracks. Speaking of live, All the World's a Stage was released in October of 1976. It was the first double live Rush album, recorded in June of 1976 at Massey Hall in Toronto, and mixed the Toronto sound with the band's first 4 albums were either recorded or mixed. And this is just an epic double live album. I first heard this live album, or sides 2 and 3 of it, when my uncle had this record. I have the record in my bin. I found a used copy of this record with the triple gatefold that I've shown in an earlier video of mine of albums I acquired. In mint shape, an original from '76, both records in pristine shape for a 38-year-old record. It is just incredible. Anyways, All the World's a Stage. I eventually first got my first copy of this album on cassette in August of 1990. Thank you to my second oldest sister Tina, who I am forever grateful to because she bought this for me at an old defunct record store called NRN Music, which was known as National Record Mart Music. Got this on cassette, put this on first track, which was Bastille Day. Much better than the version on Caress of Steel, although the Caress of Steel version does kick ass. The live version just given an even more higher jolt. Anthem, live. Same deal. Always smoked live. Studio version, I rarely listen to now ever since I heard the version on this. The medley of Fly By Night and In the Mood. Both songs are much better live anyways. Although I do like both tracks. And then Something for Nothing rivals the studio version found on 2112. Side 2 was Lakeside Park from Caress of Steel, done better live, and just an incredible piece. Then of course we come to the title suite to 2112, done live on, you guessed it, All the World's a Stage, which is 3 of the 7 parts of the piece. Overtures, temples, presentation, although you get the very ending of Discovery. You don't get the full Discovery, you just get the tail end of it, because it goes right into presentation. Then Soliloquy, and then Grand Finale. And this condensed version of the title suite to 2112 fucking rocks, but I still say the best version of 2112 live, because I'm biased and I was at the performance of that particular recording, was on Different Stages, recorded on the band's Test for Echo tour in June of '97. And I tend to be biased towards this. Not to take anything away from this, because this is my other favorite live Rush album, aside Different Stages. And then, of course, you get the barnstorming version of By Tour and Snow Dog. Best version officially released in its full was here from 1976 from the 2112 tour. Geddy Lee's vocals on fire. I think the only effect they added to the vocals and mixing was the flanging in the mix, but they called it somewhat phased. But there was no re-recordings on this. This was as raw as Rush got. The other live version of Vitor that I loved was from this, recorded in 1980, but it was half of the song. And it was interesting hearing Alex Lifeson play a Fender Stratocaster on the first 2 or 3 sections of Vitor as on this, which is a live version from February of 1980. And Geddy Lee was using that model bass, that double neck on a version on here. Neil was using his Tama drum kit that he used for the Permanent Waves Moving Pictures area. That mammoth Tama drum kit with the Avidus Zildjian cymbals. I cannot pronounce that dude's first name. You know, the best drum kit Neil had was from this period, and the version of 2112 rivals the one on here, as far as condensed versions go. And Alex Lifeson used the black Fender Stratocaster that he used in the Limelight promo video on the version of Vitor on this performance, because by the time the tour progressed, Alex did not use a Fender Stratocaster after the first 3 months of the Permanent Waves tour. He went back to one of his Gibson ES335s for the remainder of the tour, and it wouldn't be until the Moving Pictures tour that he would use the white Fender Stratocaster. But on this he used the black Fender Strat as he used in the video for Limelight on this version. But the version on here is the only full documented performance of the song in full. It beats the version on Fly By Night by a long shot. By a long way, I mean. Then, of course, in the end, not to confuse you with that craptacular Linkin Park song, but the Rush masterpiece, kicks ass on this, and just an excellent version. I think it's better on here than the studio version. And then, of course, you have the medley of Working Man, Finding My Way, Back to Working Man, kicks ass on here. The original on the first album classic, but Neil put his own stamp on the drum parts to this. And they only do the first verse and bits of Finding My Way, back to Working Man, and then ends Working Man with a lengthy drum solo, proving why he was the professor of the drum kit, using that old Slingerland kit of his that eventually he would retire after this tour, and would get the first Slingerland kit that you would see in the videos from the Farewell to Kings and Hemispheres period. Then that Atomic kit I told you about for the Signal, the Permanent Waves and Moving Pictures period. Then the red finished Tama for the Signals, Graves Under Pressure, Power Windows, then Ludwig, then DW. He's had more drum kits than I've had I can count. And last but damn sure not least, it ends with a barnstorming version of What You're Doing, which wasn't on the original CD version of this, because when this was first released on CD in the late 80s, it could only fit so much on one CD. So when I first got the CD in November of 91, collected my Rush CD canon, I was kind of pissed that they removed What You're Doing. So I had the Chronicles collection until they decided to re-release this in full with the original album intact. And of course the CD copy I have of this comes from the Sector 1 box set package like the original record. I put the CD in a protective paper sleeve because plastic sleeves would have done more carnage sliding it in and out. Luckily this doesn't really actually prevents this from getting scratched if you gently pull in and out like I do. Anyways, All the World's a Stage was Rush's first US Top 40 album. Wouldn't be their last either, because every album after this would be pretty much a top 40 charting album, with the exception of Hemispheres. Why? I don't know, but at the time, 1978, it was Saturday Night Fever and disco. But All the World's a Stage fucking kicks ass, and is my second favorite live Rush album of all time. In fact, it's their second highest selling live album. Their highest selling live album turned out to be 1981's Exit Stage Left, which is also a killer live album. It was the second live, was actually the first live Rush album I ever owned, but All the World's I kind of favor more because it was Rush, warts and all. Exit had some fixings. Brilliant version of Closer to the Heart on that one, but that's songs for another time, another place. I'm talking about the 2112 All the World's period on this review. Anyway, All the World's a Stage, first top 40 album for Rush, their second gold album which was certified in one go, along with 2112 and Farewell to Kings, which went gold thanks to Closer to the Heart being a hit, and was their first album to go gold within 2 months of its release. So the gold albums from Rush that they got in 77 were 2112, Farewell to Kings, and All the World's a Stage simultaneously. Different ballgame these days. But in those days, to have gold and platinum albums in those days was a very big deal. Now it's not. In those days, it was a big deal. Anyway, that's my review of both. Wait for it. Oh geez, I don't want to knock anything over. Oops. Right. My review of both 2112 and All the World's a Stage. I hope you all enjoyed this 2-for-1 special review. Terrence signing off for now. Thank you all for watching these two albums being reviewed in one go. Thank you all for watching. Good night. Keep your feet on the ground. Keep reaching for the stars. And God bless.
We have assumed control. We have assumed control. We have assumed control.